Welcome to The Grand Balance, a weekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. I'm so delighted to welcome today's guest, who is not only a seasoned cybersecurity leader who has made a significant impact and name for herself in the industry dominated primarily by men, but who is also a grandma of 5 and one of the warmest individuals I've met. As a mom and now a grandma, she has firsthand experience balancing family with a demanding professional career. And today we are going to hear her stories on what works and what doesn't, and even get a lesson on cybersecurity tips to protect ourselves and our families from the rampant cybercrime happening in our society. I'm so delighted to welcome my colleague and friend, Carrie Whysall.
Hi, Carrie. My name is Sharon, and we're really excited to have you here. And we thank you for your time and excited to hear your tips and tricks of being a successful grandma, since we are very new at it. Can you start by just filling us in on your personal life and your background?
Let's start with the personal side. I've been married for 37 years to my husband, Michael. We have 3 children of our own. They are 40, 35, and 30. I'm sorry, that last one hurts a little bit to say that my baby is 30.
Well, you look younger.
Well, thank you. It's the blonde. I'm naturally a redhead, but that stuff goes straight to white. There's no way I can't do it. Let's see, the grandchildren, I have 2 14-year-old boys, a 12-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, and our youngest just turned 5. She just started kindergarten this year.
So you're a grandma, you're a wife, you're a mother. What about the professional side? Tell us a little bit about your career.
It's been fun. I have been in lots of positions where I am the only female in leadership for most of my organization. I can say probably the funniest ones are like going to conventions and having men order drinks from me, like I was working the event versus attending the event.
Oh, no.
But I think overall, I've been in it a long time. So you really have to keep your sense of identity and that you belong here. And you really got to fight for that. And I've had a lot of fun. Cyber is not usually fun. We're the bad guys, right? Or sometimes we can be the good guys chasing the bad guys. I think all the recent ransomware stuff has really brought a lot of this to more of the general population. Identity theft probably helped that more than ransomware, but I try to be on the positive side of that. But it's easier when something happens to you at home and then all of a sudden it happens at work. And now, oh my God, that actually makes sense, right? Like we have to protect it in both places. So I have fun with that. I've really, throughout my whole career, my main goal is that security doesn't have to be complicated.
So the one thing I love about Carrie is I was working for a cybersecurity company. I was brought in as the only female leader, and it was full of men. And Carrie was my first other female leader hire. And I thought we made a great team. So much so that I asked her to come to the next firm that I was working at. And we've done a lot of great work together. You've done a great job of helping me get over my imposter syndrome. Just when, women, we have imposter syndrome. We don't think we're as good in certain areas and stuff like that. And you've done a great job helping me get over that and validating that I do know what I'm talking about. And I should feel confident in my skill and all of that. So thank you for that on the professional side. Back to grandma. So you have a very demanding job, having to drop what you're doing sometimes to help clients with their ransomware attacks. Have you set boundaries with your kids or with your grandkids on when grandma can be available and when she can't? Do they understand the type of job that you have?
Yes, they do understand the type of job I have. And sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's a negative. An example of a negative would be when my son was probably 2.5. He didn't talk a lot in the beginning because my husband was a truck driver. So he was raised by 3 women who really, he just had to point and get what he wanted, like to the point where we had to say, use your words. But the night that I left my pager on the coffee table and I was cooking dinner and all of a sudden I feel this little pat on my leg and he hands me my pager and says, Mama, it's work again. So you're like, ugh, now he already realizes that too, that there's something that's, competing with him for my time. But I will say that my youngest son probably has the most experience in cyber because he's been in his car seat in a closet with me rewiring a switch at 3 o'clock in the morning when I got a call because one of my technicians decided to go to a bowling tournament instead of answer their on-call pager. I don't really have to set boundaries with my grandkids like I did my kids because my grandkids have grown up with technology. They've grown up knowing about cyber. They've had phones since they were a year old. So it's actually funny because Nana knows more about computers than their parents. So Nana is the one putting net nannies on their computers. It's more often that they'll call Nana. Nana, I'm stuck with this assignment. I can't figure it out. Nana, CAD's not working. Can you help me? And I'm always the one saying, if I catch the TikTok app on your phone, I'm going to jailbreak your phone. You're going to be unhappy because I'm going to erase all of your content. Said it's all right to watch the videos. Don't put the app on your phone. It's just a tracker app for China. And for the most part, they do listen to me because they know this is what I do for a living. And I'm not, just being that Nana picking on them. But I really think being in cyber has kind of helped me stay more connected with my grandchildren than I probably would be if I didn't understand everything that they were, doing in their everyday lives with all their devices.
Yeah, I was going to say it makes you very relatable to them. As far as what you're saying with the China tracking with the TikTok, you're thinking, or you're not thinking, but you obviously know they're tracking our whereabouts or our habits or all of the above.
All of the above. They are listening to our children. They basically own the platform. So they're listening to what our kids are into. They're listening to all of the crazy TikTok videos that we're doing with our grandchildren dancing with their softball teams. But they're also looking at a lot of the searches, a lot of what we're interested in, all of the different groups that we belong to. What everybody feared 10 years ago that Facebook was going to grow into this thing where Big Brother was watching you has really come true on the TikTok side of the universe. That whole platform was designed for that. Let's look and see what they're doing over on the West. The scary part is that people like me are thinking about it from a different angle where everybody else is thinking, so what? Someone can see my kid doing a silly TikTok dance over in Russia or wherever they're at watching these videos. While I'm thinking, yeah, they're watching your kids. They're listening to what they're into. That's the grounds for the next scam because they're just waiting for these kids to grow up. They're watching what these kids are doing. And as they get older, they're finding ways to make them targets or finding ways to make their parents targets because kids talk about their parents on TikTok all the time. So our children think it's just this platform where they can go out and vent and be funny and make videos and watch cooking videos. TikTok definitely has entertainment value, but there's also a lot of data that we're feeding to that platform that we don't even think about, and we're letting our kids do it every day.
Do you think it's the same with Facebook or Instagram?
It's a little more regulated because it's mostly in the domestic United States for
It's
their
not owned by
server.
China.
Right. I understand the foreign aspect, but I was just wondering from a amount of data being collected and looked at and,
they're getting as much data as TikTok. I think for me, the only reason I'm not as concerned about Facebook is they do a lot vetting. I know we've all known somebody who's been kicked off TikTok or kicked off Facebook for doing something or saying something they shouldn't have. I haven't met anybody yet who's ever been kicked off TikTok.
Interesting.
So nobody's intervening over there. They're just letting whatever happens happen. Where I feel like Facebook at least has a little bit of a guiding hand where they're like, okay, you crossed the line, especially when you're talking about maps and some of those groups. Facebook has really made a concerted effort to try and minimize our children from that kind of predator where that's still a wide open field over on TikTok. So it's just it's a weird thing.
No, I'm glad you gave your take because you hear so many differing opinions on mainstream media. And I've always wondered, and that did clear up a lot of questions I had. I have a question. Most children, not most, but the majority of kids are getting phones late elementary school, middle school. What would be the one recommendation you have for parents when giving a child a phone for the first time, saying they're between the ages of 10 and 12 or 13?
12 and 13 is a hard age to give them their first phone, only because I have Life 360 on all of my grandchildren's phones. I also have parental controls. I have chats with my children about, what are you letting them get to? Like from 10 and below, there's a kids YouTube channel, there's kids Instagram channels where you can control the narrative. You can control what they're allowed to search. And there's actually really good parental controls, both on the Android and the Apple side, if you take a minute to put them into place. But as they get into those teenage years where it's more about peer pressure and their friends are on TikTok making videos, and even like my granddaughter's softball team, they have their own TikTok channel. That gets a little harder to keep the pressure on or keep those, what I call net nanny guidance in place, because now if you listen to them, you're ruining their lives, but you're also kind of encroaching on how they interact directly with their friends. But that's also the age that cyberbullying starts. So I would say probably the best thing that you could do as a parent, if you have a teenager, which we do, we have the ability to see the texts that they're getting. And we don't necessarily want to read all of them, especially the teenage boys. But it does allow us to feel like if there was some cyberbullying going on, we wouldn't necessarily see it while it was happening, but we'd see it obviously in the next statement, which I think is enough time to intervene and maybe correct course with what's happening with your child. Because the more and more that we get less physical bullying in schools and we're doing more online, the cyberbullying is just crazy out of control right now. And I really do think the schools and the states probably need to take a little harder stance on that. But it's so new. I don't think anybody's really taking it seriously. I think as an adult, we think, oh, I don't care what you said about me online. Most of the time, I don't care what you said about me in person. But we're not teenage girls, or we're not teenage boys who just want to be liked by everybody and have friends, or, they're madly in love with somebody at 13 and now somebody else is saying all this stuff about them. They don't have the emotions to deal with that. So if you do have a teenager, I would definitely, number one, put Life 360 on their phone. But I would also set it up so that you could see their text, not so that you're auditing them, but just so that you have an idea of what's going on in their life. And if there is something negative like cyberbullying, that, you have time to intervene.
Carrie, so you said you have Life 360 on all your grandkids' phones, and they're okay with that? Is that the app you were talking about?
I was just talking about this app on our last episode, because my children and myself all follow each other on Life 360 too, and it's so simple and I loved your tips. My daughter is a school counselor, a middle school counselor, and she says one thing that she's found has been pretty successful are the parents that can regulate the phones and turn all social media and texting off during school hours. Are you familiar with any of those types of things? I am. Do you think they're successful?
They are sort of successful. So I think when you turn it off at night, which Nana has hours on her router when they stay at Nana's house.
Nice.
And so their devices also have timers on them. Each of the grandkids gets 4 hours a day. And if they use it during school, sucks to be you after school. Very rarely do we allow them to have extra time. But I have seen where parents are turning it off during school. But I think for the most part, teachers are taking phones anyway, or they're making them leave them face down on the desk, or the teacher has a box that all the phones have to be put in at the beginning of class. The only concern I have with turning off any kind of Wi-Fi during the school day is, what if it's that school? It is the next school shooting. And for me, that comes from the heart, because we had family involved in the Oxford. I can't even talk about this.
I'm so sorry.
High school shooting. None of them died, thank goodness. But being able to reach out to them during the incident and then being able to reach out to their parents was invaluable. So you kind of got to think about the state of the world today. And I don't know that I would turn off my grandchildren's phone during the school day just because I don't know what could happen.
Right. And she was talking more about turning off specific like social media apps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you could certainly, depending on which carrier you have, they actually have tools for it, or you can buy tools, net nanny tools for your devices. During the school day, I think we're already regulating their access to the devices so much that I don't really worry about it. But I haven't been in a school during a school day in a very long
Right.
time.
Well, and California
So
is just now passing all kinds of laws about turning in phones to teachers or turning your phones face down, et cetera, where it was a huge problem up until this year, I would say. And now they're starting to regulate it more. So kids are not using their phones during class.
When you use the term net nanny, what do you mean by that for those that aren't familiar with that language?
there are all kinds of parental control apps that you can put on top of your devices. Life 360 is just one of them. That's more of a tracking app. Where are you? But you can also put alerts if your child leaves, more than 100 feet from the school, you get an alert. It's those kind of things. I want to say one of them's called Mom to Mom. I'd have to look. I can probably get you a more current list of them, but there's all kinds of net nannies that are babysitting what your kids are doing on the internet. I've always had them on our home devices and on our laptops, but they do make them for phones now too, where you have some control over what your child can do. The best part about net nanny software is most of them have a folder so that if your child tries to delete something, it's going to get diverted to that folder and you'll be able to see it anyway.
Oh, nice.
Because, they all think they're smarter than us, right?
Of course, right?
Possibly know what they're doing. But yeah, there's all kinds of them out there. I'm trying to think.
What about, so we're talking about the kids and, how to protect the kids. What about ourselves and our, let's say, elderly parents? A lot of us, not me so much, but a lot of us are on social media all the time. We're shopping like crazy online. We're reading blogs. We're doing so much online. Outside of those more tracking apps for the kids, what can we be doing as adults to protect ourselves from cybercrime? And then anything in particular or in addition to support our elderly parents?
Well, let's start with the elderly parents, because there is a huge scam going around. And I know, Angela, you and I have talked about this one before. Healthcare records are a huge target for hackers, but it's been 3 or 4 years now that this has been pretty big. What they're basically doing is they're going after physician office data instead of hospital data. So they will see that your parent has been in to see the doctor for pneumonia or for the flu or whatever it was their last diagnostic code was. They will copy that doctor's letterhead, because obviously they have access to the files, and then they will send your parents a paper bill. These bills are always under $100. When they go to pay them, they're being paid to prepaid Green Dot card accounts. They will give them a credit card option as well, but it's the same thing, that it's to a Green Dot prepaid account, because they're counting on the fact that most of these guys are on Medicare and Social Security. So there are things that used to be covered that aren't. So by keeping it under $100, they know they're not going to go online and look at their bill. They're not even going to call the office. They're just going to pay it, because that's what their generation does, is pay their bills. So what I would say, especially with medical care, that, you have conversations with your parents. If they're getting bills in the mail, that either they vet them or you vet them with your physician office. It's the last time I saw that the FBI, I think, posted any stats on this, it was already over $1 billion that had been paid out to these folks. So it's really horrible that they've decided to now take it back to paper, but it's working so well. And it's really hard to stop, especially for the elderly folks who don't have anybody looking out for them. the folks who might be in a nursing home, or the folks whose significant other just passed away and they're inundated with bills and they just keep paying them and just keep paying them. It's not in their nature to go validate that. The other thing that I would say, again, with their devices for your elderly parents, making sure you have Life 360 put on that phone, making sure that you have shortcut dialing options put on that phone so that on an iPhone, you can create a contact and put it on their main page that they just push that contact and it'll dial you or it'll dial whoever's picture that they're pushing, so that those are in the accessibility options to make it faster for them to get to you if something happens. But in general, they don't get on the computer a lot. And if they do, they're usually keeping up with their friends on Facebook. What I would say for both generations is quit answering all of these surveys and quizzes and, what's your favorite grandma's name? Or if I had to name my daughter tomorrow, what's an old-fashioned name you'd pick? What school did you go to? Where did you grow up? None of those are legitimate people that are just curious. And even if it's forwarded from your friend, they don't know where it got. Last time I took the time to track one of those, it tracked all the way back to Nigeria, which I don't know if you both know is the fishing capital of the world. So it's just little stuff like that, not putting any kind of personal information about yourself out there. While it seems fun and it seems like it's a game with your friends to share, have you ever been arrested? In what states? Blah, blah, blah. Don't answer those questionnaires.
That's a really good tip.
Yeah, those are
all fishing
never thought of.
I worry about my mom who, like I said, shops all the time. She does get those. I'm constantly telling her, Mom, I think you've been hacked because it's telling me to do this or, whatever. For those that don't know, Carrie, when you say fishing capital of the world, it's not like real fish. Can you explain?
No, PH fishing. So they are sending out all these lovely phishing emails. If you guys have ever heard the joke about the Nigerian prince wants to send you money,
yes,
in the cyber world, it's not a joke because that's how it started.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they actually have call centers that are country sponsored trying to get you to respond to these phishing emails. And they're getting good.
So phishing means like they're putting out the line trying to get a catch to scam you. Yeah.
Scam.
Basically.
Carrie, I'm wondering, like with the pay systems, you pay a monthly fee for like LifeLock. Do you recommend everyone having something like that to monitor your credit? Or do you think it's a waste of money?
I have to be careful how I answer this one. Do I think LifeLock provides...
Not necessarily LifeLock, but any of those companies that monitor your credit and give you alerts?
I think they do provide a valuable service, but I also think if you have a Capital One credit card or an Amex credit card, all of the credit card companies offer that service to you for free as well.
Okay.
You don't need to go pay for it. They will, anytime you want, generate your current credit score, tell you how many inquiries you've had, how many hits you've had. Where LifeLock and the other applications come in handy is usually we don't think about them till after our identity's been hacked, or we've had, a credit card stolen, or we've had some kind of credit card fraud. Paying for it up front, I suppose, gives you a little peace of mind. But I will tell you that between the Experian breach and the Change Health breach, the Blue Cross breaches with Anthem, it's probably, if you live in the United States and you've ever had any kind of loan or healthcare treatment, your data's probably out there somewhere.
Right.
It's the question of when it's going to be used. So to me, I think LifeLock makes people feel better because they'll help you navigate it, but it's not going to stop it from happening. What can stop it from happening is you having agreements with your credit cards or your credit bureau to say, I have to approve all inquiries.
So like freeze your credit?
Yep. You can file that with Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. There's a form that they have. You just fill it out and say, no hard inquiries allowed without my approval. So then if somebody is making inquiry or you go to buy a car, they'll make the inquiry. They'll text you and say, hey, is that you? Did you make this inquiry? You have more control. You can say, yep, that was me. Go ahead and process the inquiry. But it does stop a lot of the kind of people just fishing for inquiries to get your credit score to see if you're a good target.
Okay.
And it also helps you see if somebody's got one of your cards, you can also track any activity because you have that on file.
Right. Yeah, I've been meaning to do that and I have not done that. So that will be my quest tomorrow to freeze my credit on all the bureaus.
Yeah. And I have it set up so any international transactions will ping me to say,
yeah, I have that set up as well.
Yeah.
Let's kind of maneuver over to your grandparenting life. How have you been
crazy, I can tell you that. It's crazy.
How have you been able to successfully grandparent while having such a demanding career? Is there any types of tips you can give grandparents out there to have a close relationship with your grandchildren?
Get very good earbuds that are noise canceling so that you can be on a conference call while you're babysitting and they're trying to kill each other. Also get very fast with the mute button where
I love
mute it and say, if you don't stop, it's going to be Nana that's breaking this up, not just the two of you. I think for me, I've always kind of involved my kids and my grandchildren in my career. My son and I built our first computer together at 7. So I've really tried to make sure they understand that I have 3 pieces of my life I'm married to, but that one is never more important than they are. My job is great, but if something bad happens, Nana's going to stop and I'm going to deal with that. And then I'm going to come back and finish what I need to. I can remember when my middle daughter was playing volleyball, their coach got cancer. And so they asked for volunteers for a coach or they couldn't have a season. And my dear darling daughter said, my mom played volleyball in school and she plays on a grown-up league. I'm sure she'll help. When you coach a travel team and a school team, you're on the weekends, you have to ref in between games. I would have to be up on the ladder making calls. And I'll tell you, multiple times we were on CRT calls or incident response events and
major cyber events were happening. So she had to be
on the ladder.
Yeah. So I'm listening
to be the commander in chief. In charge.
Yeah. I can tell you there were a few times I missed the mute and blew the whistle with like 100 people on the call to say that the play was over or somebody touched the net. Sometimes it actually worked in my favor because they would be like, look, we'll just call us when you're done after this game and we'll skate through this part and we'll catch you up afterwards. But I think I've really tried to still live my life and be there when I can. Now, there are times, obviously, I've got to say, I'm sorry. Being open with them and really being able to understand their language and what they're talking about because I'm dealing with it every day, including text speak, helps a lot where there are times I understand what they're saying and their parents don't understand what they're saying. But I think for me, the balance is just really they understand what I do. They understand if they need me, I'll be here. There may be conflicts, but they're always going to be the more important part of that equation. And that is not always easy, especially being a female. We have a lot of demands on us. And of course, the first time we say, I have to go do something with family, you get the eye roll and oh, of course you do. I'm very vocal when that happens. And, I'm probably the first one to pipe back and say, well, that's okay, Dad. We understand you're not going to show up to half of it, but you have a mom at home who's covering. Okay. I'm the mom at home who's covering in our life. So just get over yourself. It is a different set of expectations for a female working. You have multiple pieces of your life and they all expect to be the most important. So it is a balancing act. But I think for me, just involving them in my career early has been great. FaceTime, Skype, Nana sends memes all the time, or they'll send me a meme and we talk all the time online. So, I think it helps me be a little bit closer to them, but in the end, it is a hard balancing act.
Yeah. You've moved. So I think you have grandkids that don't live near you anymore. And we were just talking about on another episode how to balance the holidays or get equal time, or and I don't know if equal is the right word, but quality time with all the grandkids if some live close and some live far. How are you balancing that now that you don't live near all of them?
That actually was really hard because for the ones in Michigan, I was there their entire life. So 3 of them grew up with Nana, and until they were 12, the oldest one was 12. So they're used to having Nana all to themselves on the weekends, and even for holidays, the 2 that lived in Louisiana would come to us. So for them, Nana's house is where family is, right? Like everybody comes to Nana's house for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. They know their cousins are going to be there. It has been different being in Florida. So it's been totally reversed because the 2 grandchildren who lived in Louisiana all this time and were my remote grandchildren moved in with me. So, now all of a sudden the 2 are here with me full time. The 3 there aren't, but they know their cousins are there with Nana, made them less than happy about that. But I think in that case, technology is a huge help. We talk to the grandkids probably every other day, even the 5-year-old. I mean, she has her own phone. So
really? At 5?
Yeah, because she rides a school bus.
Okay. So safety thing. We're talking about that, like the right age to start kids, but it's not our decision, right? It's the parents' decision, but it's just hard to think about what's the right time nowadays.
We have a couple.
The parents come and ask Nana those questions because that's her job. So that was a little easier. But now she has Life 360 on her phone. She is blocked only to kids' YouTube. She's blocked from the internet. She can't even run Google Chrome on her phone. So in that event, the 5-year-old can call home and she can watch kitty videos. That's it.
Yeah.
And we have the accessibility options that I talked about for your parents. We have her phone set up that way as well. She has a picture of Nana, Papa, Mom and Dad, Grandma, Grandpa. I think she has Aunt Mandy and Uncle Aaron. So if she is ever stuck somewhere, she can just push the button and get to Nana. And actually, for all of my grandchildren, including the oldest, we've always put the shortcuts on their phone so they could call Nana or Papa, no matter where they were. As a family, we talked about when's the right age for a phone, when's the right age for a computer, when should they have a TV in their room? Because let's face it, today the TV is the internet. They're streaming more than they're watching television. And there's no way with a smart TV to really fully disable the internet. So it's a conscious decision that when you put a TV in a child's room, you're allowing them to go out on the internet.
Yeah, you've seen everything. It sounds like you do a great job of balancing everything too.
And you have a lot of insights that most grandparents don't have just because you're so tech savvy, which is great. So we really appreciate all these tech tips. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, I'm loving all of them. I've learned all kinds of things today.
Well, Carrie, I know we're out of time, but this has been great. Cannot wait to share some of your tips with our viewers. I'm going to look at, some of your ideas and suggest them to my daughter. This Life 360, I was telling Sharon on a last episode, I haven't had anything like that since my kids went away to college. I'm like, I don't need to track them anymore, right? I used to track them when they were teenagers, but then realized that it's still very important just as part of the family living. And
it makes things super convenient, I feel.
Right. So I'm going to go back to my kids and say, would you mind? I don't know if I'm brave enough. I'll say, is it okay?
Well, the other side of that though, is my children also are concerned. My husband has a lot of health issues and I travel for work.
True.
So they were also concerned about making sure we were part of the Life 360 group because we're getting older.
Well, that's a good point.
When I'm not here, especially, they can see where their dad is and has he left home today? Did he eat any, did he go out and get any food today? So I think it's just as much for us as it is for them. But for me, it's more about my grandchildren. Like I know that they made it to school every morning. I get an alert that all 5 of them got off the bus and they're where they're supposed to be. And it's just now it's out of my brain and I don't even got to think about it. Especially the ones from Michigan, because I have been there for 4 of the 5 births in person. And so that's a for me, that's a bond that it's hard to break just because now I live 7 states away. So
Yeah.
And it's such an easy app to use.
the one last thing I would say, and I think everybody's doing it right now, but I wish we would stop too, is quit buying stuff from Temu, because they're getting your kids' information from TikTok and they're getting your financials from Temu. So stop.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
always been
really
very
cool
wary of
stuff
that.
over there, but don't do it.
No, I won't
Okay.
even put it on my phone.
No TikTok and no Temu. Those
Right.
are
Stay
two.
away from China. They got enough of our data. We don't
Okay.
need them anymore. Plus, they
Great.
have all our money.
Yeah, great closing tips. I definitely appreciate all those.
Well, thank you from this tech savvy grandma to all of us novices out there. We're so happy you joined us today, and you gave us quite a few grandma tips. Because we've been talking about how Sharon and I are new grandmas, but you're a veteran. So it was great to hear how you're making each grandchild feel special and still staying connected. So
And safe.
and safe on top of that. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you. I loved all your tips.
I had fun tonight. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. Also follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas Podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.